Yeah, hi everyone. This is David Chalk. Just feeling called to bring something through Jeshua. There's certainly a lot going on at the moment. The climate change thing really seems to be hitting, and he brought a message forth about that last time. And everything seems to be speeding up between AI and the collapse of Israel from within, which is an extraordinary development. There's always been suggestions that there's a strong link between Israel and a lot of the unfoldment of what's called the Atonement Plan. And so to see something so dramatic happening in Israel really is a red flag in terms of, I don't know if red flag's the right word, but definitely indication of profound world changes. And much of what has been occurring kind of behind the scenes, a lot of it facilitated through the Way of Mastery community in my experience, and that's where I learned to channel as well, through kind of a private apprenticeship with the channel, really with Jeshua through the channel for about 9 years in the 1990s. That's where I was trained by Jeshua to channel him, or to act as his channel. I don't really channel him. Someone makes a call on a telephone. It's not the telephone that's doing the business. It's the person calling, and that's the way the channeling is, really. But without a doubt, there's a profound change occurring. Yeah, we look at the weather patterns, that July's been the hottest month in the history of the world. And where do we go from here? And the answer seems to be love is still the choice. Love is still the option. Loving our enemies and not judging and doing our own inner work. And the thing that's the basic, I think, assumption here is that our creative capacities are far greater than we're giving them credit for. This is clearly defined in really two of the most profound of the Christ mind teachings, Jesus' teachings for this time, which I've spent many, many years studying prior to becoming, serving as a channel for him, Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery. And there are so many other channels out there, and I'm sure they all have some value. But in terms of the unfoldment of a specific blueprint for a specific plan, orchestrated by the planetary Messiah, that's really what's been of the greatest interest to me. There's a story there and an unfoldment that I think is continuing. But I think if we're going to summarize where we are with that most succinctly, it's that there is, for lack of a better term, a new potentiality because of the amount of spiritual light that is coming into this world. That's not something we can see physically, or might even, one can question whether it's true or not. But prior to these things happening, there was sort of mitigation, one might say. So one would make a choice, one would use their mind, their creative vehicle, to make a choice. It might be a hateful choice, for example. And then time and space was here to kind of delay the effects of that choice. So your mind manifests creation. You're a child of God. You can create whole worlds with a single thought, and it's happening all the time. And given the mess of the consciousness of many of the souls sort of associated connecting with this world, there's a mitigation, like a density, like it's slowing down. You throw something out, and instead of it bouncing back and hitting you right in the face, if it's not a loving thought, there would be time. You'd be given another chance. Like, you sure you want to do that? Instead of, like, I guess in terms of a physical illness, one might say, you might think a thought that would naturally create a physical illness. But the universe might say, well, instead of giving them pneumonia, why don't we just give them a slight cold, give them a sniffle, and see if they want to make another choice, and then the pneumonia doesn't need to happen. Or anything in the world. A war between countries. Oh, I hate that guy. I want to go and kill them. Well, maybe, why don't we're not going to give you the gun or the weapon. We're going to make it a little bit harder for you to manifest these things. And that's what 3D time-space is about, to a large extent, kind of giving the child of God, who is kind of in an insane perspective, time to recognize, maybe I don't really want this, before the brutal consequences of some of those choices might manifest. But what's happening in order to have more rapid creativity with the loving thoughts and the Christed thoughts, so if you want to put it that way, or for whatever reason, a deadline has kind of come, the Father has said, yep, enough, the children have slept long enough, and that mitigation aspect is being taken away. So now there's a much more direct relationship between what we think and what is manifested immediately now, instead of delayed. So when we're looking for answers to this, the answer is, like the most important thing that anyone can do is to, the Course in Miracles will say, accept the atonement for yourself. To look at any experience you're having and to see that, wow, this really is my creation. The experience of global warming, the experience of witnessing the war in Ukraine and wish it wasn't happening, the experience of whatever it is, if it's part of your experience, your mind is such that you are generating that experience, period, and stop, no other factors involved. That's what the teachings are saying. That's what the Christ mind teachings are saying. Ultimately, I and I alone am creating my experience, all aspects of it, period, and stop. There are no other gods. I and my father, my mother are one. There is no separation between the effects of my experience and my choices. No other factor is involved. There are avatars and leaders and teachers, Jesus being the greatest of the bunch, in my experience at least, who are showing us the way of how to navigate this increasingly powerful medium of our mind. Now, the mind isn't getting more powerful, but it's being put in a position where its power is being less regulated by external forces. There have never been external forces, but it's a little bit like pretending there are external forces, and that's been there's been a slowing down, an agreed upon slowing down. It's like giving a gun to a child. You just don't do it. The power of the mind is like the gun, and the consciousness of those on this planet is like the child. But there's been a certain period of time, and God is saying, okay, we are going to return the power to the children who hopefully have grown up and now there's going to be consequences so that a higher frequency experience can be generated on this planet for those who are choosing to be responsible and whose Christed expressions, as it were, from the power of that within themselves, this is destined to be a planet that is an expression of Christed beings. She, Gaia, whatever you want to call Mother Earth, is ascending as well. Is doing it together. And so the main thing, and this is really a challenge here, the main thing is to see that whatever is happening in our experience is our creation, and that if one wishes to clean up the mess of the consciousness that exists within pretty much the mind of pretty much everybody on this planet, there's a process of purification, and that process really is the foundation of A Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery. These are practices which are helping to purify the mind, not to deny it, but to engage it. Love trusts all things, including an expression of an illusion, a dream of separation. Love trusts all things, allows all things. In allowance, we recognize that there is another power than, from what our perspective, that God is actually acting through every aspect of what we call our universe, to provide the perfect opportunities for our growth and awareness and awakening. Love trusts all things, love allows all things, and love embraces all things, and thereby transcends them. So this isn't like what some Course students might say, or Course teachers might say, oh, the world isn't real, blah, blah, blah. It's, your perception of a world apart from you creating it isn't real. The perception that your will and God's wills could be separate isn't real. And the resulting experience you might seem to have from believing that. None of those things are real. But what is real are the loving thoughts that we have, because only love is real. And ultimately, we need to turn that love towards anything that we're in judgment of. What might be called our enemies by Jesus. Love our enemies, he teaches in many levels, and the deepest levels of that love our enemies really has to do with loving our judgmental thoughts, because they are the things creating our experience of suffering. Not an outside world, not climate change, not Donald Trump or Joe Biden, depending on your stripes, not whatever else seems to be occurring. Not those things. The thing that is creating our suffering is our judgment. And judgment is the belief in any circumstance that that I want something else, that I would prefer something else, that it would be better if something were different, that something should. Ultimately, judgment involves the frequency that's represented by the word should. Something should be different. That sentence could be described as the consciousness of the separate dream. Something should be different. I want something to be different. God is doing something I don't want. Reality should be different. This is the cosmic mess, the consciousness mess that we've allowed to live in our minds. So, contrary to that, opposite of that is, everything is the way it should be somehow, even if I don't see it. Everything is my will, because I am not separate from the Father, Mother. Everything is my will, because only God's will is done, and I am not separate from that one. Is it possible for me to go through a practice of purification, lived experience as well as thought, in which I truly recognize and am willing to be wrong, happily wrong, about the things I have been believing, and truly recognize that all that's occurring in this universe, once we make a dedication to return to truth, to awaken as it were, all that's occurring is God answering that request and putting all of the experiences in our path that are required for our awakening at our request. Great example of this is our teacher, our way shower, Jeshua, Jesus. I just read the other day that the word Jesus, the name Jesus, doesn't pop up until, I want to say 1600. Isn't that incredible? It was always something else prior to that. So the name 1600. And it would have been Yeshua, or Jeshua, but Yeshua in his native Aramaic. Yeshua. So Yeshua goes through his own purification process, masters it, completes it, and he needs to, even in the depth of his maturity as a human being, at Gethsemane, he experiences terror and sweats blood, as they say. And then even on the cross, as he transmutes and transcends the world, he still says, just prior to "it is finished," "Father God, why hast thou forsaken me?" So he's there with us, having been through this experience as a human being, not immune from the humanity, but experiencing it himself, and I think most importantly, embracing it. At Gethsemane in particular, when he falls into terror and is sweating blood, he turns towards the fear, he turns towards it and feels it fully. That's why someone sweats blood, is because they're embracing the fear fully, allowing it to be fully felt. Embracing what could be another term, could be mourning, his pain, his suffering. And those who embrace their mourning will be granted new guidance. So on the other side of fear, sadness, anger, is new guidance, is a transmutation of those energies into love, into a loving message that is being presented for us. And it's really often the resistance to that message that generates the experiences of what we call the contractions of sadness, anger, fear. So surprisingly enough, we might perceive these things also to be our enemies. These things arising within us, anger, sadness, or fear. And as they do, this radical teaching, becoming a happy learner, as it were, emerges. Oh, wow, despite all of the kind of instinctive feelings we might have to do something else, the motion that we're being asked to go through is a motion of embracing and fully engaging the dream. And the dream includes our states of anger, sadness, and fear. So as they arise, the guidance is to love them. And in loving them, to allow them to be fully experienced and felt. And a brilliant teaching from J.M., the teacher of the Way of Mastery. Two things. One, what would you seek to control except for that which you do not already mistrust, from Jeshua. And another, in these challenging circumstances, which we might be judging and wish were different, what is it that we're learning in those circumstances that we couldn't find anywhere else? And might it be that the soul is desiring to learn these things? And thirdly, where we might see anger, sadness, or fear as the enemy, might it be that that's what Jesus is teaching? Oh, love your enemy. Let me turn towards this and feel it fully. Let me feel it more so that the resultant peace might come. Jesus says in the Bible, Jeshua says in the Bible, I come to bring a sword. And the idea here being that the sword will cut away the resistance to all that's arising so that we embrace and love our enemies. Cut away the idea of hating our enemies, cutting away the idea of judgment. Let the sword cut those things away so that the conditions might exist in which genuine peace can be established. So that's a bit of a primer. I thought we were going to be channeling here, and I think my guidance is, well, we're going to have him come through just for a few minutes here, and I guess. But this is obviously coming from him, even though I'm not doing it that way. So I'm going to take a second to say the prayer quickly, and then we'll have a short message from Jeshua to cap things off. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Yeshua, Yeshua, Yeshua. Indeed, beloved friends, we come together for the joy of the joining. And though it may seem that conditions are getting hot, yes, in many ways, where you are, perhaps where others are, know that where I am and where you are in truth, where you abide eternally, as opposed to temporarily in your consciousness, in what you're putting your attention on, the you that is generating all of this experience, what you call your earth and separate world and so on, the beauty, the fear, all of it, the you that is you, abide in a place of eternal perfection. The place is perfect, as are those who inhabit it, and we share that place with you as inhabitants, as it were, in the infinite beauty and perfection of the mind of God, from which all things come forth. Therefore, I invite you just for a moment to imagine that you abide in a place of perfect safety. I abide in a place of perfect safety. I abide in a place of perfect safety. That is the truth of who and what I am. And no matter how things seem to be unfolding, and you are seeing the structures breaking quickly, war. And war will continue and war will expand. We are just saying, it is not that we are saying it is good or bad. We are saying it will be part of the necessary experience for the souls who are still committed to such things, who still think there is value in such things. And there's been shared the pulling away of what is called the mitigation, And therefore, many who have been thinking hateful, violent thoughts, and who have been given over and over again the option of, perhaps you would like to rethink that before it expresses in the world, it will be expressing more rapidly and more quickly. What we invite you to do is to take a few moments each day and remember, I abide in a place of perfect safety. That is where I am. This is an experience I am having, not unlike what you call your movie theaters. But because you are the child of God, it is far more what you call hairy, and extraordinary, and beautiful, and life-affirming at times, but also the deep dive into what could be called the chaos and the fear, all aspects of the experience of what might appear to be separation from God. Fear itself could be described as what if? What if creation is different? Yes, but what if creation, we realize creation is the way it is supposed to be now, but what if it changes in the future? But what if this happens? And yes, okay, I can see that perhaps my will and the Father's are one, but what if that changes? And that would be very scary. And therefore, all of this speculative, feverish imagining, fear being nothing more than that, in truth. But you are so good at your creations that my saying this will not put much of a dent in it necessarily, nor should it. But it is there in case at some point you wish to say, we are complete with this extraordinary creation and time to catch the train home. The train home will be simply the recognition that there has been a complete engagement of what might have appeared to be an illusory dream. If you would speed up the trip home, both the getting on the train and the speed of the train as it returns home, we would indeed share the teaching to love your enemies. Take a moment, now and perhaps as a regular practice if you desire it, to simply ask yourself, given the teachings I have been told, I and I alone am creating my experience, what could possibly be my enemy? Might it not be the aspects of mind that you have chosen to get lost a bit, the thoughts, the ideas that would say that God has it wrong? That is a scary thought. Oh, climate change, that should not be happening. It is either outside of God, which means God is not all-powerful, or God is getting it wrong, which means that God is not love. But, beloved friends, we will tell you God is all-powerful and all-love, and therefore perhaps you need to change your perspective on the nature of reality if you will understand it. Therefore, look at your judgments and consider that the opposite might be true. There are many such practices for you to do this. When it comes to what you call the money on the table, when you enter fear, when you enter sadness, when you enter anger, and it seems to overwhelm you, practice merely being present, merely bringing your attention to the presence, the present moment. And this can be done through putting your attention, focusing your mind on the breath, on something around you, on a feeling sensation you are having, but something that is occurring only now. And take a little time to get still as you can. And if the stillness will not come, turn your attention with love towards that thing which is disturbing you. There are no errors in creation, and if something is knocking on your door, fear, sadness, anger, whatever it may be, there is a reason. Consider it the Father knocking, that you might answer the door, embrace what is occurring instead of resisting it, and in doing so, take your next step on your awakening journey. In some ways, it can be seen to be a very challenging time on your planet. That condition that might inspire such a view is going to increase. But we would say there is a unique opportunity now to see the effects of loving thoughts more rapidly transmuting your experience and extending out into the world, transforming all that it touches as well, because all minds are joined. Therefore, your choice for love now makes you a way shower. And with that, we complete this sharing. Amen.